And good morning. Thank you.
Morning,
And
George.
good morning. And thank you for joining today. This should be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I think we're lots of mutual friends talking to past this for a while, and excited to be here.
Well, cool. Well, maybe to start with, you had just mentioned that it sounds like you moved into a new place. Maybe talk a little bit more about where you're at, what made you go there, and we'll kind of start from there.
Yeah, so Alan Pesty, originally born and raised in Athens, Georgia, about an hour east of here, and then after college, I joined the Army, and I lived just about everywhere else: Alaska and Kansas, Korea, lots of fun places. So when I got out in 2018, I ended up in Silicon Valley, California, working for tech companies. That's when I got really back into running, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and then pandemic hit, and I decided I don't like working from my living room and paying for a Bay Area living room. So ended up in Nashville for a couple of years, which was all right. Fun town, lots of good runners. And then this fall, just kind of realized I wanted to move back closer to home. So was looking for something in the Atlanta area that had easy access to Athens, and found a place I could afford here in Tucker. It's good to be back in the South, although 27 degrees this morning, it doesn't feel like the South. So
Yeah. Talk more about, so what made you, so you mentioned you're in the Army, you went a bunch of different places. What did you do in the Army?
yeah, so I was an engineer officer. That's what the Army trained me up to do anyways. So a lot of that, military engineering is construction side, but also demolition. I spent my first duty station in Alaska was an airborne unit, so I got to jump out of airplanes, which was a lot of fun. And then I ended up in Fort Riley, Kansas, in the 1st Infantry Division, which is all tanks and armored vehicles now. So kind of got both sides of it. Also spent a decent amount of time doing logistics work for the Army. It just kind of goes with being an officer, you end up in those kind of roles. And so everything from deploying a unit to Afghanistan to doing railroad operations in Korea. Done a variety of things. Got to play with a lot of demolitions, and it was fun. So did that for 9 years. Yeah. Left while I was in Kansas is when I got out, and tried to pursue. Was wondering what to do with my life, and got hired by a small consulting company out in Silicon Valley, working with Cisco and doing project management for them. So I did that for about a year and a half, and then at the time Facebook recruiters reached out and recruited me to work on misinformation on those platforms. Did that for almost 3 years, and so that's where I am now.
Wow, that's a cool background.
So it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, and then somewhere along the way, you picked up running.
Yeah, that's been so. I mean, kind of always been a runner. One of those kids that grew up playing lots of sports, but just was never any good at any of them. And so when it came to it was 8th grade year, you could go to the high school and like participate in high school sports, like as a middle schooler. But I really wanted to play baseball, and the baseball coach was probably like the first adult conversation I ever had. He's like, "Look, you're not going to make it. Like, it's okay. You're a good kid, but you could do the track team instead." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, I have no idea what track and field is. I'd gone to the Olympics, in '96 and watched the track, but I was like, well, that doesn't seem like my thing, but I'll trust the coach. And so I got out there, and, day one, terrified middle schoolers surrounded by other middle schoolers, and coach would, all right, we're going to try everyone out on all the events so you can see what you're good at. And I was like, okay, cool. And they put a hurdle on the lowest setting in the infield, and like all the kids were just going over and over. Well, I got up there and just face planted, hit the hurdle, went straight down, only kid to trip. And coach was very nice about it, but he just picked me up, said, "You see those kids over there, like doing extra warm up? That's the distance team. You're one of them now." Didn't get to try any other events. My dream of being a pole vaulter diminished. So went over there and did the 1 and 2 mile through high school. Did 1 year cross country my senior year. And that was about it. I was never fast. I just enjoyed doing it. I think my fastest mile was a 5:03, which, I mean, nothing to be ashamed of, but when you consider they're high school kids running sub 4 these days, like perspective. But I went to college, did one semester of cross country in college before I almost blew my knee out. And that was the end of that. And then college, enjoying that, kind of took over. Was still running because I was doing ROTC and all like that, but never really anything serious until just after graduation. Our mutual friend Tom, he had signed up for the country music marathon in Nashville. He's like, "You should do this." I'm like, "Oh, maybe a half." Like, I'd never done anything longer than like a 10K, I think is what we raced in college. So I was like, I'll do the half, and man, I loved it. I just had a great time. So I got up to Alaska as my first duty station, ran like 4 or 5 half marathons that summer. Just no idea what I was doing. Didn't have a GPS watch. Knew nothing about nutrition or training plans or anything. I was just young and could do it. So really enjoyed it. And then I was like, I'll just do a full. It'll be fine. And it wasn't. It was terrible. I think I had one gel for the whole race. And I took it at like the halfway point, and then, the walls, the monkey on the back, the blurch, whatever you want to call it, like all of it just destroyed me.
I've met him. He's not nice.
Yeah. So that was the end of my like distance running for a long time. Again, kind of life took over in the Army and doing that, deployments and training and all like that. So I was still running with the Army, could still, bust out 2 miles in a respectable time, but it just wasn't nothing more than that. I thought, marathon was one and done. That was enough of that until I got out to California, and I was like, there was a running club that met right near my house. So I was like, all right, well, go hang out with them on Saturday mornings. And that snowballed, and I got to actually learn about, there's such a thing as training for a marathon. And like, there's all these cool races you can do, and community, and really building that out. And so kind of found my tribe, and really not just being a runner, but actually like understanding running and like learning about it, and learning from other people's experiences. So really got caught up in the community. And then I, kind of looking around like, everybody else is doing marathons. Maybe I can do this again. And signed up for CIM, actually did a training period. I think it was an 18-week build-up, and crushed it. I loved every minute of it. I mean, I set a very reasonable goal. I think I was running 8-minute miles. It was just let's see if I can do this without dying. And I loved it. I had a great time, and that really hit the snowball effect of like, all right, I'm signing up for my next one. I'm going to keep going. Pandemic hit, of course, and all the races were canceled. So deferment after deferment, I kept signing up and doing full training plans, like 18 weeks training rotation, but then, the race would be canceled. So finally ended up running the Twin Cities Marathon in that last October, 2 Octobers ago. Then Cleveland this past May, Bismarck, North Dakota in September, and then had the opportunity to go run the Dublin Marathon in October, which was fantastic and a total accident, but it was fun.
Wow.
So that's how I got here. And now I'm training up for the Mount Charleston in Nevada for April 1st, and trying to BQ that one. So we'll see how that goes.
What a cool story from a kid who had a hard time jumping over a hurdle and found himself on the distance team to now running 6 marathons.
Finished 6, yeah. Training for number 7. If Coach Edmonds could see me now, he would no idea what he started.
That is super cool. So first of all, where in Alaska were you stationed at? My parents were in the Air Force growing up, and so we lived in Fairbanks, and I was.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Fort Richardson down in Anchorage. So it was right when I got there, they combined. It was a joint base, Elmendorf Richardson. So we actually had a lot of the Air Force stuff there, but much nicer weather down in Anchorage. And
it's the Southerners down there. You guys are living in the high. It's like Seattle weather down there.
Yeah. Oh, that was the first marathon, was the Anchorage Big Wildlife Run, which is beautiful for anyone watching. If you want to do an Alaska Marathon, highly recommend Big Wildlife. They had to divert the course because there was a moose on the course.
That doesn't happen every day.
Yeah. I was just glad there were no bears. So because that happens when you're out running and hiking or whatever. Just, oh, there's a bear. I'm gonna go the other way now.
Yeah.
So
I remember being on the road and a moose would be standing there, and we were in Dad's Bronco, and you just kind of sit, you just wait until the moose moves, and you're like, why don't you just? He's like, he's not going to move, and that's it's a neat.
It's an interesting place to live. Yeah.
So in this running journey so far, has there been a kind of a favorite memory, something that really sticks out?
Yeah, I mean, that first day of track has always kind of stuck with me forever, which is, I mean, it's a story I love to tell, but a lot of kind of my favorite moments have been rather within the last couple of years, now that I'm getting to be more involved in running. I started volunteering with a pacing group, so providing pacing for half marathons. So I've done that twice now, and just really kind of being able to give back to the sport. Like, I feel like I've gotten, I mean, anyone who does a race, like, you get so much from the volunteers that are there that it's really nice to give back and just kind of help out in any way I can. And I have a skill that I can run a consistent pace for a half marathon and help other people along with their journeys. So that's been a lot of fun. The Great Smoky Mountains half marathon back in November, I think it was my last one. I really enjoyed it. And then I'm doing it again for the Sewanee half marathon coming up in February. So anyone watching, if you want to run hour 50, I now have a 2-for-2 record of getting people in on time. So
that's incredible. What's the I love to share the name of the pacing group, or maybe can you share more about how, if someone was interested, because I think a lot of people would be in getting started, how would they how would they start something like that?
Yeah, so the group I run with is called Beast Pacing. They originally started out in California. Now they do races all over the country. And so the woman who runs it, you submit your last 3 marathon or half marathon times, depending on what you want or are comfortable with pacing. And then she slots you for like 10 minutes slower than your best, no faster than that. And then whenever she gets a new race that opens up, I think we just had one come open today in Maryland or something like that. She just sends out an email, says, I need pacers and alternates for this race. Here's the date, here's the time, here are the times. And then people reply back to the email and it fills up. And then you get free entry to the race, which is great. You just show up and, carry your little sign and cheer people on. So it's a lot of fun. If anyone's interested, Beast Pacing, you can look it up on the internet. So let me make sure I got the right website here.
Yeah, I'll put the
I'll send you the link, and that way you can bust it out to people. Also, but she also has contracts with a lot of the big series. So all the vacation races, this Beast does all of those across all the national parks, which is how we got Great Smoky Mountains. They're also doing like, or what are the big ones out in like Utah and all of the vacation races, and then the hot chocolate runs. So the hot chocolate run in Atlanta, coming up in January, I'll be doing that one as well. But I'm not sure what time I have, but so I'll be out there as well. But
very cool.
It's a lot of fun and interesting to kind of give back to other people, and interesting opportunity.
I want to dig back. I want to go back to something you said about nutrition. So you mentioned your first marathon you did, you had one gel. I can relate.
Yeah.
First half marathon, or one of the first half marathons I did, I carried 2 Starburst in my pocket. I remember doing
nice. That was way more than I had my first.
Yeah, I think that would be a smart idea. Obviously,
wasn't that bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Since then, you probably have changed your nutrition plan a little bit for marathons. Maybe talk a little bit more about what are some of the things that you've learned about nutrition in your running journey so far.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's one of those total can of worms that as soon as you open it up, you just start digging and learning more and more and more, and everybody has an opinion, right? I learned a lot mostly from reading the Hanson's book, the Hanson Marathon Method. Really was kind of that's what I read prior to CIM to kind of understand the physiology of running a marathon and how you get there, and understanding, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell isn't just for middle school science. It actually matters to marathoners, and consuming enough carbohydrates and converting it to glycogen and all like that fun stuff. So I mean, yeah, you can get into the cellular level of learning about it, but I've always loved bread and pastas and things like that. So I haven't really had to change too much in my life other than trying to incorporate more of the vegetables and the fruits and other things that have carbs, and the complex carbs and those kind of things. And, I'm not a professional runner. Like, I don't eat to run. I eat the way I want to, and I just kind of tailor it to my running so that I don't have a giant greasy meal the day before, a long run, because that ends in disaster, as we've all learned along the way, I'm sure. So it's been more of learning the timing of meals and how that affects me a lot. But that's a very individual journey, as well. As far as, supplements and things like that, started with the regular, like goos, I think they were the Gatorade goos, and, those, a year or so training with those was fine. Then somebody turned me on to the honey stingers, loved those. So just the natural sugar. And then when I moved to Tennessee, I got introduced to Huma, Huma. They're based out of Tennessee. It's a veteran started company. I think he's still a partial owner. And they're based in Nashville, but they're all over the country now, and they ship, but all natural, gels that they're based off chia seeds. And so it was, interesting that I started using those and had a lot of success. And then I read Born to Run. And through there, they talk about the indigenous Mexicans and like the weird like paste, whatever they make out of the chia seeds. And it's like how they fuel. And so it's interesting. It's kind of come full circle to me now of like, oh, there's a reason this works, and here's how it works, and that kind of stuff. So really enjoy Huma. I've been using those for the last couple races. And I've had really good success. And really, I think the other part of it for me, at least, has been learning about hydration. And it's not just drinking tons of water, which I do, but, getting the balance of the salts and the electrolytes with the water, especially moving, from the Bay Area was great. Like, you didn't really have to worry about hydration as much because you just don't sweat. It's nice, calm Bay Area. But like moving back to Nashville, and now coming down to Georgia, I'm sure it's going to be even worse. Of like, it gets hot, it gets humid. Even when it's cold outside, it's humid. And so, the noon drinks, Huma also has like their like drink mixes, things like that. And, it's not just like, oh, after the run, I'll have a electrolyte drink. It's like, no, like during the day, I got to stay hydrated and, just add little sprinkle to all my water and stuff like that, just to stay hydrated and, kind of keep things in balance. It's also, I think, part of getting older is just being more in tune to how my body feels. And, I'm not 23. I can't just roll out of bed and run a half marathon anymore. I gotta like, all right, let's get ready for this and make sure my body's ready to go. So
Definitely. Super helpful. I know we're running up on time, and there's one last thing I wanted to ask about. You mentioned balance, and I think that's a good way to end this, which is, I imagine when you were in the Army, or even after the Army, where you were working with some of these high-profile companies, your days were very busy. So how did you make it all work? How did you train for marathons and races and still do life?
Yeah, I think a lot of the weirdly enough, the pandemic helped a lot because, I'm a morning runner, so I enjoy getting up early and starting my day that way. And I think that's a big part of my success anyways, is like, I'm perfectly fine going to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then waking up at 4 to go run. Like, that doesn't bother me. Living in Alaska, I got really used to the cold weather. So even if it was chilly in the morning, like, I have the good gear to do it. So I think, finding a time that works for your schedule, that's obviously the pandemic made that a lot easier because I could just, I didn't have to worry about getting done with my run, getting showered, getting cleaned up, commuting to an office. I mean, certainly that first marathon for CIM when I was training for that, that was definitely the case. Living, a good like 20, 30 minutes away from work, which is only like 5 miles in Silicon Valley, but takes forever to get there. So it was a 3:30 start time some mornings to get up and get ready. It was just tough, but committing to like, all right, I'm going to go to bed early, I'm going to get this done, and then having, I think a lot of the other part of my success as far as like maintaining in the long run is the accountability of the groups, and really having that circle of friends to hold you accountable. So even when Strava's been great for that. I know Strava can be really bad for a lot of people, and the social media aspect of like keeping up with the Joneses and, oh, they ran this fast, I have to run that fast. If you can detach yourself from that and just see it as a way to encourage each other and build the community, like I have with, like, I mean, everyone I used to run with in California, I'm still in touch with. Like, even outside of Strava, like we still text and message constantly just because we built that community and we hold each other accountable. We celebrate our victories. We talk about races after they happen and like, oh, this went well, this could have done better. Friend of mine, he was visiting Atlanta for Thanksgiving, and we went for a run. I took him out to Piedmont Park and showed him around, and we hadn't really talked much in the last 2 years, but when we went on a run, we talked the whole time and we didn't shut up. So just having that some kind of accountability method, and it worked for our mutual friend Tom as well. Like I signed him up for a race. I said, Tom, you got 8 months. We're running the half marathon in Athens. You're already signed up. You're registered. Like, this is your accountability. You're doing it. Like, there's no option. I'm going to drag you out there. And sure enough, like, he started running. He started doing it. It's just having something in the back of your head that's to hold you accountable, I think, is the most important part. So for me, it's community or having a race on the calendar, like right now I just finished week 3, training for the next race. So it's as cold as it was this morning. Like, I know I have to run this race in 13 weeks. Like, guess I better go do it. So, yeah.
Well said. That seems like a perfect place to end it. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate your time. This was
great
a lot
catching up, George. We'll see you soon.